Okay, here we are in the home stretch. These are all of the different elements that we've created over this process. And now we are ready to take them in from individual components to an actual display. So we're going to be compiling all of these components and creating our floral picture on artboard. It's got a little bit of heft to it. This is the Crescent brand. You could probably use just about anything you want in terms of attaching your flowers to. You probably want to avoid something thin like paper, only because we are going to be using glue, and you know how paper gets sometimes when it gets wet, even with a thicker glue, it can kind of warp and wrinkle a little bit. So you don't want that. You want something that's going to stay sturdy and flat. So we're going to begin with our larger abstract flower, and you really need to just kind of start with the center and work your way out. I'm going to put mine slightly off center, and then I'm just going to come in and kind of build my flower. This is really just kind of trial and error to see what fits where, how it all works together. And the great thing about it is if you don't particularly like the way it looks, you haven't glued it down, so you can just pull it off and start over. So I think that configuration is really pretty. So what I want to do is I'm just going to pull these down a little bit out of the way. So I kind of keep them where they're going to be. And then we're going to start with the center of our flower. And what we're going to do is we're just going to dip it in our glue. I've got a lot more glue this time, and I've kind of spread it around a little bit because you've got wider surfaces that you're going to be dipping into the glue. This is where your tweezers are going to come in. For this one, I think I'm just going to dip the bottom in, kind of make sure you've gotten most of it. And then I'm just going to place it where I want it to be, which is right there. Perfect. This is where you're going to use your tweezers, and you're now going to start attaching the peach colored scrolls. So I'm just going to grab one just like this and just kind of dip it into the glue, just the edge. You do not need an awful lot. If you feel like you have too much, you can kind of wipe it off on your plate if you want, but remember, it's going to dry clear, so if you have more than you think, it's probably not going to show up. Then you're just going to place it where you want it to be. Kind of push down with your fingers. Going to come in, we're going to do the next one. Dipping it in the glue. And while it's still wet, you can kind of manipulate it a little bit. Okay, and you're going to push down gently just to make sure that all of the surfaces are touching the artboard. You can come in, if you've got a little bit of glue that you can see, just come in with, I sometimes fold down a strip and just kind of come in and pull that off. These are some of the edges of the strips that I've trimmed off that I'm not going to use. I'll just kind of come in and run it along there, and it'll pick up any of that extra glue. So you're just going to keep building. Pressing down. Same thing, if you've got an edge that didn't really get a lot of glue, you can come in with just an old scrap piece of the strip. Put a little bit of glue down on the artboard and hold that in place. Oops. So you're just going to keep building your picture. Not every single piece of it has to be glued down. Again, I feel like I needed a little bit more glue. I tend to be real cautious. Put a little bit more underneath there. And I will just continue laying these petals. Again, just using regular old Elmer's glue. Anything that will dry clear. Isn't this pretty? I know I keep saying that, but I really think it is. And our last petal. If you need to open it up, you can. As long as you've got some glue on there that will hold it in place. And there's our first element. Pull that up so you can see it a little bit better. That's really pretty. So then the next thing we're going to do is add some vines that we're going to add the other flowers onto. So we're going to take one of the dark brown strips and we're just going to kind of estimate how big we want them. I'm going to have one coming out here. So I'm going to cut it about this big. Maybe one coming out here. A smaller one here. And maybe one that just kind of comes out from behind the petal. It's a little bit larger, so. Now, because in nature, things are not squared off like this, for these vines, you can kind of, on the edge that's going to be outside and not touching the flower, you can kind of just curve them a little bit, like this. Makes it look a little more natural. So I'm gonna do that to all of my ends. And now, because things aren't straight in nature, I'm just going to take my fingers and I'm going to curl this a little bit. Let it go however it feels like going. And then again, just going to dip it in our glue. Lay it down in between those two. Oops. Right out of there, didn't it? Again, just as you did with the peach colored scrolls, just going to press it down there. So again, just kind of making this a little curvy. Dip it in our glue. And then just hold it in place until it sets. This must have been the one for up here. So again, just twisting it a little bit to make it look more natural. This one we're just going to have coming out as if it's come out behind this petal. Oops. Doesn't take an awful lot of pressure to hold it in. So again, getting a little bit of curve. If you want, you can come back in as we did with our quilling tool. Just make some curves that way. Again, just dipping it at the very edge in the glue and then placing it where you want it. Okay, now remember these that we made, the two-tone, we call them dogwood petals. We're going to add these to these vines, these brown vines that we've put in. So we decided that there were 4 petals per flower, but remember we were going to have these green centers and that we are going to have multiple of the green centers. So what I'm going to do is I'm just going to reach in here, kind of figure out where I want to put these. I think that works. Could even maybe move it some and put it at the end of that. So then we're going to want to go ahead and put in our green centers first. We decided probably 4 or 5 of these per flower. So you're just going to take this again, dip it in your glue, place it down on your board. Grab another one and do the exact same thing, placing them next to one another. And then we'll put this 4th one in there. And then we're just going to build in these petals around it. Same process, dip in the glue. And then place the petal. That one kind of popped out a little bit. Just push it right back down. You can also use your fingers if you want to, instead of using your tweezers. What you want to be careful with those is that the glue doesn't pull out the center. Just maybe why tweezers are better. And there's our first flower. I like it. So let's add another one. I'm going to do the exact same process. I think we'll do this one maybe over on this side. We're gonna, actually let's go ahead and kind of figure out where we want it first. I think somewhere along there would be great. So we'll go in and add the green centers. It's kind of relaxing to do this. This part doesn't take a lot of thought other than your creative thought as to where you want to place these. we'll just go in and again place our petals. If you ever feel like you have too much glue, just dab it off onto the plate. I love these because they all kind of look abstract. They're not necessarily flowers you would see out in nature, shaped like this, or these colors. Okay. There are those two. I think we'll come in with some of these flowers that we made. Just kind of place them randomly wherever you think they may fit. They don't necessarily have to be attached to one of the brown vines. Really just wherever you feel like they should go. I like that. So these are obviously much bigger because they're completed flowers. So again, we're just going to pick them up, stick them in our glue, place them back down. Move on to the next one. Now once you've got them down here, it's not easy to get them back up. So you really do want to think about where you want to place them. I'm going to get a little of this glue off of here so that you don't have to try to move them. If you continue to try to move them, you're just going to have a real mess on your artboard, which you don't want. This is our two-toned one with the lighter pink on the outside, the darker pink on the inside. Here's our teeny tiny one. And the last one we'll put. A little crazy with the glue there. I'll go ahead and dab it off. So there are those flowers. Now, if you recall, we made leaves. So we're going to make some branches for those leaves to go on. So I have kind of a lighter color brown strip, and that's going to be the branch for our leaves. And start by cutting them in half. Obviously, these are much bigger than they need to be. So I'm going to go ahead and just kind of eyeball them and cut them into fourths. I think I have enough for at least 2 sets of leaves. So again, just kind of want to soften these up with my finger. You don't want these to twist and turn as much because they are going to have the leaves on them. I am, however, going to go ahead and round off the one end. I think we'll have one. That's a little long. So we're going to cut off the end just a little bit. I think we'll have one here. I think we'll have one here. Round off that end as well. I don't want that to twist too much again because we're going to attach some leaves to it. I think it might actually be a little bit too long. Chop it off a little bit more. Okay, so we're going to come in and again, same process. Dab some glue and place it on the artboard. Now what we want to do is take our leaves, of which we have quite a few here, and we're going to build out with the largest ones first on the bottom. And in nature, leaves are typically kind of staggered as they move up. These kind of look like fern leaves, so I'm just going to kind of play with it to see what we like in terms of how it looks. You want the smaller ones, obviously, to be closer to the top. And you can put as many leaves as you want on here. Obviously, it's completely up to you. It's kind of a big one, so I think I'm going to switch it out with this bottom one. Also kind of a large one, so we'll switch that one out with a smaller one. And then you typically want to end with one right on the edge. How does that look? I think that's really pretty. So again, let's go ahead and build up this one over here and see how it looks. And then when you feel like you've got it where you want it, on the end, oops, we will come in and we're going to start at the bottom and just start gluing. Pressing them down into place. Doesn't take much for them to dry enough for them to stay where you've placed them. So what do you think about paper quilling so far? It's not hard, is it? I find it kind of relaxing just to twirl all of the paper together, to take the individual components and make them into something really pretty beautiful. Oops. I think of all of the parts of this, the 3 different types of flowers, I think the leaves are my favorite. I just think they add that splash of green that really stands out and makes it pop. And the one at the very end. Okay, let's go ahead and build out this one. Again, I got a little bit of glue if you can see. So I'm just going to come in with the edge of a spare strip, get off as much as I can. Again, it's going to dry clear. I can't imagine anybody would notice it, and if they are, they're probably looking way too closely. That's a great thing about crafts. It doesn't have to be perfect. Nothing you make has to be perfect. It just has to be what you want it to be. A lot of people say, I don't craft because I don't think I'm good at it, and it never turns out the way I envision it in my head. That's okay. This is my little crafting pep talk. You can do it. Because honestly, the things that you see as flaws in your crafting, you're probably the only one who notices them. Everybody else just looks at it and thinks, oh my gosh, what a great job you did. I feel like I could use a few more leaves on this one. Luckily, I always have extra. And our last one on the very tip. Oops. Wants to be a little stubborn. So that's what we have so far. And honestly, that can be it if you want it to be. I know some people are kind of uncomfortable with the white space. I've seen some people come in and throw some extra petals as if they're being blown away. I think I like mine just how it is. I'm going to turn it around so you see what I see. I think it turned out really, really nice. I think it's really pretty. It's kind of abstract. I think we did a great job. So that's paper quilling. So you can go from single strips of paper, much like these, to something this beautiful. A little easel, and it's easy to display wherever you'd like to. I think it turned out great, and I'm really pleased with it. I hope you enjoyed learning how to paper quill and that you will try it on your own. So now that we're done with paper quilling, what did you think? It wasn't nearly as hard as I thought it was going to be, and really it was kind of fun. It's just twisting and curving paper, and really anybody can do that. So I showed you just how to do a few different techniques, and we created a floral display, but honestly, paper quilling can be used for absolutely anything. You can do landscapes, you can do portraits, you can do animals. Really, the sky is the limit. So I hope that you will jump in, go out and buy some supplies, and try paper quilling yourself. And again, thank you for joining me on this episode of Making Messes. Be safe, be well.